Hey everybody, it's time for another Movie Monkey review. That's right, it's Tuesday. Another cheap $5 day, and this week I saw Kingsman 2. The something statesman. Okay, so before I get into my rant, really it's just a rant. I like this movie. I would recommend seeing it just because it's really stylized and it's fun. It's just an action-packed, fun ride. I'd watch it with some popcorn if I were you. And I definitely would not be eating a hamburger while I watch this movie. That's like way too much insight after this point. Like, you should, if you haven't seen it, or if you ever want to see it, like, you should not watch any further because I'm going to ruin this movie. All right, so my favorite part about this movie is Sir Elton John's in it, and it was just really weird, fun, and sort of awkward watching him do his thing on stage and being all like old now. But my favorite, one of my favorite scenes was like he's like playing the. I can't even. How does like this movie just does a really good job at making it make a little bit of sense that Elton John's in it, because me just telling you that Elton John's in it and he flies through the air and kicks somebody in the face with platform heels just doesn't make any sense. And that's kind of what this movie's all about, is like these really weird things that happen that make almost no sense. But they really string it together just enough for it to like completely my suspension of belief on this movie. I give it a lot, and if you're gonna really enjoy this movie, you got to give it a lot of play. But yeah, Sir Elton John kicks somebody in the face with shiny platform heels while he's wearing this giant feather costume and like little mirrors on a bald cap and giant Elton John glasses, and it really made it for me. Also, there's like this really intense, so I'm just gonna skip on to another thing. There's just like really intense like fight scene, and like your main characters, your good guys, are fighting to save the earth, and all this shit's happening, and there's crazy angles. It almost made me woozy how like fast everything's like going and shifting, and people are using whips and people are shooting guns and everybody's freaking got a weapon and it's going crazy. And then like bad guy whips out a pan and just in almost not silence but near I don't know what they did, but there's all this scuffling and craziness going on, and this guy whips out this pan and it hits one of the main characters in the face and goes Pong! But it wasn't in slow motion. Well, maybe it was, but it really felt slow. Like it was like took up a lot of space in that scene where this thing just went Pling! And hit the guy in the hit your good guy in the face. Other than that, I mean, Jeff Bridges is in it, and I love Jeff Bridges. And he's all like, "I'm Jeff Bridges. Let me just spit in this spittoon for a minute." So I really enjoyed Jeff Bridges being him. Other than that, I mean, if you didn't see the first movie, I would watch the first movie first, just because there's like a lot of callbacks. Actually, like half the movie is a callback to the really traumatic thing that happens in the first movie. And then there's all these like winks and nods to it. So it's really like self-aware, I think, of the first movie. So highly recommend watching that. And as fast paced and artistic as this movie is, I mean, the first movie really sets the pace for just like crazy antics that get to be thrown into like these movies. Like your main villain is in the middle of the jungle where she creates a 1950s throwback village for herself and her minions. Like her minions, everybody's got a machine gun in there, and like there's like a giant donut and like a 50s diner and like a nail salon and doesn't make any freaking sense, but it does in Kingsman universe world, and I like that. I like that they can get away with just like this weird. I mean, I think this film is just a piece of art because it doesn't do anything but like set up really like stylized, cool stuff to happen. Your main henchman's got this robot arm. It does all this robot arm stuff and doesn't make much sense of what he can do. It doesn't get really explained at all. It's just like this is Kingsman. Just go roll with it. Same with like this watch. Same with like a lot of the technology that's in here. Very James Bond like, except James Bond had a cue that it kind of explained how things worked for the audience to understand. But this movie's just like, guys, keep up, because we're gonna like be doing all this stuff for you. A lot of the things that were explained in the first movie don't get explained in this movie. Like he has like this umbrella that does all this crazy shit, but you just have to keep rolling with the punches on this movie with it, where the first movie explains it a little bit better. Yeah. So probably the first movie has better pacing, and this movie is just like you sit in your seat and 30 seconds in, it's an action sequence, and to the last scene, the second to last scene, which is just a giant action sequence, and there's a lot of action and setups just so you can have either a really funny bit where Elton John is coming out of nowhere doing stuff, or like a really crazy bit where somebody's eating a freaking hamburger made out of a person. Yes, that happens in this movie. So that's why, yeah, I wouldn't recommend eating a hamburger during this movie. Really, it's like this awkward thing that also is like almost a callback to the first movie where Samuel L. Jackson loves McDonald's. But you already know that, right? Or why would you? Anyways, so anything I didn't like about this movie off the top of my head? No, I'd watch it, and it was Tuesday, so it was $5, so it was totally worth it. Totally worth every penny of that $5. Yeah, I'd go watch it again. But I watched the first one before I watched the second one. Yep. Those are my thoughts. That's a Movie Monkey Rant. I hope you have a great day. Love you guys. See you next week.